Raj? Yep. Evening, folks. Excuse the facial wear. It was Sarah's idea, no mine. I know we look like a couple of tools, but however. Welcome to the start of our Halloween weekend. This evening, I had planned to do a forest walk this evening and have Sarah and Mags in the studio, but I was up today checking it out, and it turns out it's actually private property. So I wasn't wanting to step in anybody's toes, especially with everything that's going on. So, evening, Mags.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much for coming out. It's Mags from Mags, Myths and Legends, is that right?
Mags, Myths and Legends, yeah.
Because you've been in our chat quite a lot, which is great.
I really enjoyed the Ripper. The Ripper one was excellent. Love that.
Thank you. Well, he's coming back next week. We've got him back on next week.
Brilliant.
Because there was still a lot of questions that we were wanting to ask, but because of time-wise, we never get around to it because he was kind of limited for time. So I've been speaking to him the past couple of days, and he's coming back next week to finish the Ripper off. You know what I mean? I know I sound in a bad way to finish the Ripper off, but I made it.
We'll finish him off.
He's a really nice guy. We were talking to him obviously before the live the last time, and he's really, really nice guy. Hey, Jillian, that's all right, dog. Thanks for coming in. Nicole's here. Oh my God, wow! Oh, the mask. It's Sarah's idea, Nicole, not mine. Not mine. It's Sarah's idea. So I know we've seen you in the chat many times, Mags, but can you tell us a wee bit about your kind of background, no personal life, kind of with the paranormal and the legends and stuff?
Well, I'm married. Got 2.2 children. It's really strange. I was never into the paranormal till about 4 years ago, although I'd had lots of experiences. But not actually. It was more of the experiences that my daughter was having that actually got me into the paranormal. I was brought up in an old Victorian house, which was, even now, I don't want to go in it because it feels, my brother has the house now, but it was the house I was brought up in. It feels horrible and oily. And that's the only way, when you walk in somewhere and you feel like you've got a film over your skin and you just go, that's how my dad's house feels. It's never felt clean, if you will. It's never felt light or bright or airy. And we used to get door rattles in that, but nothing really bad. And then I moved into this house 18, 19 years ago now, and it would be 18 and a bit. And within the first night, I didn't have time to set up my bedroom or my daughter's bedroom. Chloe, she was 2 at the time, but I'd done the lads. So me and Chloe slept on the settee. I had a 3-seater and a 2-seater settee downstairs. The first night, stair walking up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I just thought it was the lads, getting up and down out of bed. But I left the door, I jarred the door open because the fire doors, and I was watching and I could hear it, but nobody was there. And that was the first night I lived in this house. Chloe was a good talker, and she went, "Mummy, what's that?" And I went, "Oh, nothing." I said, "It's probably next door." And we're not even joined to next door, so it was like, it's just probably next door. And then, like, literally within days, Chloe started talking to this, what I thought was an imaginary friend, but I mean, she was young, she was 2, called Dottie. And over 6 months, it got to a toxic kind of relationship. And, the things she was saying, the way she was describing her, I mean, she got on my bed once and looked out the skylight that was above my bed and went, "Dottie can't get out of there." And I went, "Well, why would you want to get out of there?" She went, "To see Mummy and Daddy in heaven." And, and she'd come out with things like this.
Too much.
Pardon?
Too much detail. And what she was saying.
And when she it was, I mean, although she could talk really well, obviously, at 2-year-old, she didn't have a vast experience of knowledge saved up inside her head. So when she described her, she described a bonnet, but she didn't know what a bonnet was. So she said, she's got a hat on, but it fits to her head and it ties under here. And then she went, and she's got a dress and it's like Cinderella's. She said, but it's that colour. And it was, she pointed to a grey colour. She said, it's that colour. And I was like, okay. You know, and over time, I realised it wasn't an imaginary friend. And then she started being nasty to Chloe, saying that I was her mummy and I wasn't Chloe's mummy. And she was coming out with things like this, and Chloe was getting upset and crying. And I'd never had to deal with anything like this. You know, it was all new to me. I didn't have any paranormal knowledge or anything like that. I didn't know what I was doing or how to handle it or anything like that. And I just said, right, okay. And one day she was like really upset because she wouldn't let Chloe put certain clothes on that Chloe wanted to wear. And so I said, right, okay. Then I said, get Dottie's hand, because Chloe said she could see her. And so I said, have you got hold of her hand? And she said, yeah. I said, right, you hold my hand. We're going downstairs now. And she went, where are we going? I said, we're going outside. I said, if Dottie can't go outside, I said, she can come outside with us. So like, I opened the front door and I walked out into the garden. And I said, is Dottie still here? She went, yeah. And like, I said, where is she? And this is on the front, and I've got, my road's busy. It's a busy road. But I'm on the front of the garden. And like, I said, where is she? She went, oh, she's there. So I'm kneeling down in front of nothing. And I went, right, Dottie, I said, you've got to go now and find your own mummy and daddy. I said, I'm Chloe's mummy. I said, I'm not your mummy. I said, so you need to go and find them. I said, if you look really hard, you'll find them. I said, and you want to be with them. And then like, I kept with Chloe, has she gone yet? She's going, no. And then like, I waited a bit longer and I'm going, go on, Dottie, you've got to go. And it was like, has she gone? No. It took about 3 or 4 minutes. But she went, she's gone now, mummy. I went, has she? She went, yeah. I said, come on then, let's go back inside. And we went, and you know, never spoke to her again. Didn't even mention it till she was about 13. And when she went, can you remember when I used to talk to Dottie? And that was years and years and years later.
Just totally. You find that you find a lot of kids have got imaginary. Well, you know, we call them imaginary friends, but obviously kids are more open to spirit because their minds haven't been corrupt. Well, maybe corrupt is the right word, but you know, their minds haven't been influenced by, you know, television and other people and stuff. So their minds are kind of more open to spirits. I think that's why spirit tends to latch on to kids more than.
Yeah, they're innocent, aren't they? They're innocent, and the you know, I mean, I'm a believer in energies. So I believe what people would call a solar spirit is an energy. So, and because we're literally electrical conduits, our bodies, you know, to me, if a child's still forming all these electrical pathways in the brain, it's if an energy or a solar spirit, it's probably easier for them to infiltrate that because it's not yet formed. Do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so I kind of think like that. But it's really hard when you're dealing with kids because they also like to make up stories, don't they? The kids, they like to make up tales and stories, and you know, so you've got to be careful how much you believe in what they're saying and how much, you know, they're not. Like I said, my house is built on a graveyard. So, and the house was new. When I moved in my house, it was new. It was newly built. And they'd knocked a church and a graveyard down. Max, do you know there's a man now? No. I'm not sensitive like that. They show when they want to. But it wouldn't surprise me if he was stood round because they are there all the time. He shows himself. If it's a bloke with a hat on, he shows himself. But yeah, because I'm built on a graveyard, they knocked them down. They knocked them down to build these houses, but they didn't have to get rid of all the graves because they were over 100-year-old and they were under no obligation to move them. So some of them are still there.
I was going to ask that. Did they move all the graves? Because I've heard of that. Quite a few times. People building, office blocks, whatever houses. What an old college I used to go to was built right smack next to a graveyard. This graveyard was kind of massive, but the college, and they later found out that when they built the college, I think it was built back in the 1960s. They hadn't moved all the graves, so there was actually still graves underneath the college. And the college was there's 3 different reports of the college being quite active. So, so if your house is built on top of it, what else have you experienced?
I like ITT, so I do Spirit Box. I think I've had some excellent captures, but one of them really freaked me out, and I actually caught it on a live stream, and it said, "They murdered me. I'm buried in the bottom of the garden," and that was like, it was on a live stream. I don't know whether Gillian's still in, because I think she was in the live stream for that one, and it was like, what? Yeah, they murdered me. I'm buried in the bottom of the garden.
That's cute.
Why would he say that on the radio? Do you know what I mean? It's not like story time. Yeah.
That's nice. You hear in a film, in it, I'm buried at the bottom of the garden.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
In your case, it could be kind of, true.
Yeah, it literally could be true. No, I think the thing is as well, you've got to be careful when you do any kind of paranormal. You have to be careful and stay skeptical to a degree, because as many reasons as you think it is, there's probably 10 times more of why it isn't that. Always stay a little bit skeptical, and think of things. Because you look at it this way. If you're sat there and you're skeptical and you go, and I just hate the word debunking anyway. I just think it's a really crappy word. But if you sit there and go through every piece of what it couldn't be, so you'll say, right, well, it couldn't have been this because that's there, or it couldn't have been this because that's there, or it couldn't have been. If you finally get rid of everything that it couldn't have been, and you're left with what it could be, how much better is that? Rather than sitting there and saying, oh yeah, I've caught this, and then people saying to you, no, but what about this? No, but if you've got all the answers already because you've gone over everything, you get such a good feeling when you realise it couldn't have been that light, couldn't have been the camera, it couldn't have been, you get such a good feeling of what it is then, People are always going to be a skeptic. My other half's a skeptic.
Even though, this will sound I'm contradicting myself, but I'm 100% believer in the paranormal. I'm still a skeptic in some ways. We get a good capture in our house on that wall behind Sarah with the laser grid one night. And Sarah that noticed it the next day, and we looked and then we ran. As you say, you need to look at every single kind of aspect, and we did. We spent that day looking at everything it could be, and with the camera right behind Sarah, that picked it up, and with the webcam, so you can see Sarah. That was showing there was nothing else in the room, and so we tried to. I know you don't like the word, but we tried to debunk it, but we couldn't. And it just so happened we had Danny Moss that night for the Haunted Hunts, and we showed it to him. And he says, he says to me, that's paranormal. He said, because, you took everything else out of the equation, and there's nothing else it could be. There's too many. I've played it many a time. There's too many people out there that'll just jump on the paranormal bit straight away, without looking for other.
But to me, that's a really sad way to do it, because I don't care if I quote nothing. I want the truth. And that's what it boils down to. So if I never had a capture on, never had a spirit box reply, never got an EVP, I still would be looking because I want the truth. And 9 times out of 10, there is an explanation. I'm not a spiritual person. I know a lot of people who say, my brother says he's a pagan. He's got an altar and everything. He's a pagan. I'm not into religion or spirituality. But I believe there is a power. I just don't know what that power is. I wouldn't call it God or what have you. I think there's something. I mean, I was raised a Catholic, and an Irish Catholic. You don't get much a stronger Catholic. But it wasn't for me, and so I stepped away from it. I'd say I'm agnostic, really, but I'm not even that, because I don't believe in God. I believe in a universal power, maybe. I don't know. These are things that I look for.
And I think you need to look, as you say, you were brought up, I was brought up a Protestant, but I never actually bothered with religion. I do believe you call it God, but everybody's got their own different names for it. I do believe there is a kind of higher power,
Yeah.
in some form, but whether it's the way that Christians portray it or whatever, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, God's just a name, isn't it, for an omnipotent being that we don't know and we've never seen. It's just a name for something that, and this was also a thing. People say, well, if you had faith, and I'm like, but I have faith. Faith doesn't just come with a religious tag. You can have faith in a lot of things. Do you understand what I mean? Faith isn't just reserved for religion.
To me, there's a difference between having faith in, like Jesus and God, and having faith in life after death. You can have faith in one, or you can have faith in others. It's down to the individual. I'm not mocking anybody's beliefs. Everybody's got their own beliefs and what have you. And at the end of the day, it's down to them, basically. So how did you...
If people find peace and comfort in religion, then who am I to take that away from them? They're entitled to find their peace, or love, or what prayer, or whatever. If they feel good in religion, or in an organised religion, then who am I to take that away from them? Everybody should be able to believe what they want to believe.
That's it. I mean, I've had people that have come up to me, through the years. You're in the paranormal, you believe in ghosts, so you're a nutter, you're a freak, and all the usual kind of words that they want to throw spears at you. And I'll turn and say, listen, mate, I don't slag you off for what you believe in, so don't slag me off.
Exactly. My mum calls me a Satanist. My mum thinks well, she did. I mean, she's got Alzheimer's now. Now she calls me exponer Satan because she never agreed with what I did, and she said it's like tantamount to being a Satanist. Now with her Alzheimer's, she's got it all. She's remembered what she said, and now she keeps calling me exponer Satan. Like, thanks, Mum. But that's how people perceive the paranormal, whereas we're actually just a normal bunch of people who want to know if there's something after we die. And that's what it boils down to. We just want to know if there's something. Are we going to go somewhere, or are people who've passed before us going to be there? Is it some crazy alternate reality? Is it a different dimension? These are things that we want to know. Just because we try to find out doesn't make us wacko kind of thing, Just normal people.
Life is strange and infected. Paranormal is becoming normal. Husky, you're right with you. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, by the way. Gay.
Max? All right. Okay. Oh, yeah, gay.
But no, people do.
Yeah.
I've heard it said many a time, you know, it's Satan worshippers and all the rest of it. And I think some people think that we run about graveyards at midnight naked, throwing things at the moon and stuff, you know. Right. Excellent, yeah, thank you.
Now, you see, my other half's total skeptic, but he doesn't stop me doing what I want to do. I mean, like I said, because I'm agoraphobic and I'm in the house, for me, do my videos and do my research, and, you know, even when I do a spirit box or things like that, he's of the mind, a bit like I feel with religion, if they enjoy it, if that's something they get peace from or enjoy, or they feel a need that they have to have it, then that's fine. He's the same kind of take on me doing the paranormal. If making my videos and doing my research and gives me a sense of accomplishment because I'm, you know, stuck in a house, then why shouldn't I do it? You know, it doesn't matter what he believes. He'll support me in doing what I do, you know?
Great. I'm not going to try, but no offence your hobby, just puts all strange things that happen there, and we can't debunk them down to a mouse scratching or electrical glitches.
I've had that. We've got this. When I say knocking, when I say we got knocking one time here, it happened twice, and it lasted about 25 minutes each time, and it woke my partner up both times. And when I'm saying knocking, it was to the point where the wall, the floor, as we were following it round, the floor was vibrating, the wall was vibrating, the roof was vibrating. It was hitting that hard. And twice through the night, it woke us up, right? And it went on for like 20 minutes. And he went, "It'll be a mouse." I went, "What, have they got a jackhammer?" You know? It was like, you know, a little mouse with clogs on and a jackhammer. The room was vibrating. But look, skeptics will always look for an excuse.
Exactly. They'll always look for a different. I know I see, and there's no doubt for me, but sometimes things are not that clear, and then it's quite handy to have someone around to look at it from a different perspective. I couldn't get that word there. Sorry, carry on, Max. I was trying to do that.
I totally agree with that. And like I said, because he's a skeptic, when I do my spirit boxes and I'm listening, you know, I'm going over listening to him to annotate them, and I'll say to Rob, "Can you hear? Tell me." Well, I'll go, what can you hear there? And if he can hear it and I can hear it, I'll put it in because he's a skeptic, and if he can hear something that I think I've heard, I'll put it in because he's a total skeptic, and he has been quite astounded by some of the replies I actually get to questions I've asked. He's because he's like, "Oh wow, a friend of mine, Beth. Oh, there you go. She just popped in chat, Beth.
Hi, Beth.
Your timing." Yeah, a friend of mine, Beth. We were having a laugh and a joke on one of my live streams one day, and my friend were on, and my friend said, "All right, you can watch me in the shower if you say Beth." Beth's name is Beth Angels, right? Mm-hmm. So my mate who were on the stream, we were like, "All right, then, if you say Beth, you can watch me in the shower," because I'm always winding her up, telling her the spirits watch her in the shower. So the quick as a flash, the spirit box went, "Beth, demons. Her name's Beth Angels." So they were taking the mickey. They went, "Beth, demons," but straight away, and it was like, it was just crazy. You know, but they do have a sense of humour. I mean, at the end of the day, there were people who passed. They have a laugh. They have a joke.
Exactly. You know? I've said many times, or probably a lot of lies, and people are probably fed up saying it. But to me, we're the exact same in spirit as we were in life. The only thing that's missing is the physical body, basically. You know, and if you were a joker in this life, you'll be a joker in the next life. You know, and if you were a grumpy git in this life, you might be a grumpy git in the next life. We take it all. We don't just suddenly kind of change when we pass over. So, how did you get into the legend side there? You know, the myths and legends. How did that come about?
I like history. I like history. And it literally, you know, the thing that I was telling you about, the Bannister doll story, my dad always used to tell us this. And it was like, you know, like when you're young and, like I said, to Halloween, this was our thing, and he'd tell it every year, and he'd, you know, like a good, like any good legend, you had a bit on in every time of the telling. You know, that's a sign of a good legend, when you had a bit more on every time. And he used to tell it every year. And, you know, and it gets scarier and scarier and scarier. And I can remember always sitting there every year listening. And I think that was probably one of the first times I've ever really thought about, like, legends and histories, you know, and I grew up with this tale. And it's something that's always fascinated me. History has always fascinated me. But I think when you look at a legend, it doesn't have to be true to be good. You know, it's a good story. They're usually good stories. And that's what I love about a legend. Yes, some are founded in truth. You can find an origin to the story, which is always a bonus. But if you look from where it started to the tellings that are being told today, it's changed so much. Because, you know, it doesn't have to be true to be a good story. And they alter and change and evolve. Pardon?
Look at kind of like Robin Hood and stuff like that, the legends, you know.
Yeah, and you look at how many tellings of that there are. King Arthur, look at how many tellings there are. I mean, the Arthurian legend per se, it's evolved, and some will say there's this night, and then some will say there's these nights, and some will say that Guinevere did the dirty with Lancelot, and others will say, no, that's not true, you know. And it's changed and evolved, and they come off in different branches. And so exactly, this is what I mean. I mean, I want the truth in the paranormal, but when you have a legend, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, because you're still going to get a great story. You know, it's great if you can find the truth, but if you can't, you're still getting a great story.
I mean, it's the same in modern life these days. You know, I worked in many places and say somebody, I said it the other day, well, somebody maybe, you know, jam their hand in a door and work. But see, by the time the story goes into the 10th person, you know, they're saying that you're lying in hospital with a broken leg. You know, because everybody has their own battle. You know? Beth was saying she's from Robin Hood land. That'd be quite interesting.
Yeah.
That'd be quite
Yeah.
So you were also saying about Pendle. You spent a lot of time in Pendle Hill.
I did when I was younger, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. But I think, I know it sounds really daft, but if you want to know more about the Pendle Witches, go to Lancaster Castle. It's just the truth of the matter. Go to Lancaster Castle. God, I can't remember the name of the house. What was the cottage called now? We went there. That was Max, where's your basque? I'm sat on it. I've drove all over around there, and it is absolutely stunning. I mean, stunningly beautiful. I've climbed to the top of it many times when I was younger. Have I ever felt anything bad? No. But again, these things are legendary now. The Pendle Witches are legendary. They're reaching that stage all by themselves now, you know. So does the truth really matter? Because whether you think they're haunting or not, the stories are never going to go. The tales of the life are never going to go. They're going to grow, but they're never going to go. The whole area, I mean, Lancashire's quite known for being a haunted area anyway. You know, Liverpool's probably one of the most, and Merseyside, well, Liverpool itself is probably one of the most haunted places as a city. But then Lancashire is one of the most haunted, like, counties. And We have some amazing old buildings. Pendle's just one of them. But when you go to Pendle, it's like going into a time warp. You know, when you're driving into it, and you get the stone walls at the sides of the fields, the old cottages, and it sets a scene, doesn't it?
It does.
Well,
sorry, Mike, carry on.
This is probably one of my pet peeves with people who do the paranormal and who practice it and who can't step outside of the box. When you go into an area like this, it sets a scene for being haunted because you get the old cottages, the old country roads, with no lines and bumps and the old stone walls, and then you're walking up and there's rocks everywhere going up Pendle Hill, and it sets a scene. You have to still be able to detach yourself from the environment to do a good investigation, and I can't remember the last time I watched on YouTube anybody investigate that didn't set themselves outside of all the aesthetics that were there. They don't. They literally use it in their investigation, and you can't do that if you're going to have a good. Yes, acknowledge it's there, acknowledge it's beautiful, but don't just automatically assume it's haunted because it's old. It just doesn't work like that. I can't remember. What's the house called? The cottage. I can't remember what it's called off my head.
Sadler's Farm.
Yeah. I've drove past there. I've not been in. I've pulled up outside. Again, I didn't feel anything at all. But I mean, that's just me, and I will always say I'm as psychic as a concrete block. I believe they'll show themselves to us if they want us to know. For people who are psychically challenged like myself, I believe that they will show themselves to us if they feel a need to show themselves. But I do enjoy, like a good hunt. And when I see people who are doing a really good investigation, it excites me, because I think you're just doing a great job. I was reading about Pendle ages ago, and one of the places Demdike was supposed to have lived was this little hovel before.
Malkin
Yeah. Pardon?
Malkin Tower.
I didn't hear. No, she actually lived in the wooded area part. She stayed there, and they found her. Oh, somebody in chat might know better. Like a black cat buried in the fireplace of this like little hovel. I'm sure it was a Demdike. It might have been one of the others. But they found a black cat recently excavated.
Was there no Tyndale Farm?
I'm not sure, but it wasn't a big building. It was literally a hut that they'd found out on the ground, and it had shelves with jars and things like that, and it had like a little, built fire thing, and behind it they found a dead cat carcass, And that was one of the reasons they like to talk about black cats. It's the same with Salem when they want to talk about black cats. These are where they come from these kind of people who they've assumed are witches because they've lived out in the woods, or they've they've had no money and they've been midwives or healers or things like this. And they probably had a cat that died and just buried it behind the fire, which probably might not have even been there at the time of burying, and they were just like,
people read a whole different thing into it. People automatically just jump to the witchcraft side and what have you. But I love Pendle. I've been fascinated with Pendle for.
Have you never been?
I've never been after. We've got a joint. We are going down after everything that's going on, calmed down or whatever. We're organising with GSI investigation to
Gillian, who was in, lives literally around the corner. Gillian, who was in earlier, she lives like really close to Pendle. It's, if you don't get anything, it's still worth going because the area is beautiful. It's stunning. Don't go on Halloween. I think the last time I went on Halloween, I was like 15, and it was just packed. You couldn't move. You were all stood up like this. It was heaving.
Well, one of the Steve in the chat, he stays practically. He's right next to Pendle Hill, and after restrictions are lifted, whatever, we were going down to see him and his wife. And I say we're meeting up with GSI. We had them on the other night. We're meeting up with them to do a joint investigation. But the thing about Pendle Hill is, obviously I want to see like Lowell Head Farm, the churchyard as well. The usual. But I'd like to investigate the less popular places. The ones that aren't investigated. I think when everybody goes to Pendle, they head for the same locations. But as that area, there's hundreds of them. I'd like to investigate and out of the way places.
I would do, if you can get into the graveyard, St. Mary's Church, if you can get in there, go there. Because, isn't it supposed to have one of the witches? I can't remember. Chattox, I think she was buried there, maybe. Try to go there, because even if you're getting nothing from all the popular areas, you go into a graveyard, where a Pendle witch is supposedly buried. So I think it's a graveyard.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you believe? I mean, there's a lot of speculation whether Alice Nutter is actually buried in Whitechurch graveyard. Some people say she is. Some people say no. What do you think? Do you think she is actually buried there?
If you think about it, I'd say no, right? But this is purely and simply because of the time. At the time, if you were convicted of being a witch, or if you were even accused of being a witch, the same kind of things with suicide, they wouldn't bury you on holy ground. You wouldn't be buried on holy ground. It's that simple. And Lancashire was a very Catholic county, so there would be no way that they would bury you in a churchyard if you've been accused of witchcraft or convicted of it or anything like that, because it's consorting with the devil. That's how they saw witchcraft at the time, wasn't it? You was consorting with the devil. You was, the devil's lady of the night kind of thing. You were doing King on earth, So there would be no way on God's green earth that I believe they would bury you in a churchyard being convicted of anything like that. They might bury you off to the side of it. I've seen there's a churchyard Chipping, and the girl in question committed suicide. The man who deflowered her, shall we say, laughed at her afterwards. She was a maid and a server in the pub, which is right opposite the church. And after he deflowered her, he laughed at her and walked off. And then a few weeks later, she's still getting married.
I've not heard that in years. Deflowered her. That's an old.
I'm trying to be nice. And she's seen him coming out of the church getting married. So she killed herself. She jumped out of the window and she seen him coming out of the church. And she's actually buried at the side of the church because she committed suicide. And that was like the late 1600s, 1700s. And they wouldn't bury her with the other graves. They buried her at the side. You know, they used to bury a lot of suicides, devil worshippers, what they assumed witches and things like that, crossroads as well. So you'll find them buried at the sides of the roads and things like that. People who, so to me, if somebody was known to associate with witchcraft or pagan, I can't see them bury him in a churchyard.
So what about the theory? there is another theory, because the Nutters were, Alice Nutter wasn't exactly your everyday kind of person. She came from a, you know, a well-to-do family.
Yes.
There is one theory that, you know, after she was executed, a family member actually paid good money to, you know, the authorities, whatever, in order to have her, you know, buried.
A land grab. They literally did a land grab. They did a land grab because it was it a nephew? I can't remember off my head. I think it might have been a nephew who did it, and it was literally a land grab. She got accused. She got lumped in with the others because he wanted a land.
But that was it. That's exactly. Back then, you know, you could accuse anybody of being a witch. You know, if you wanted their land, you wanted their house, you wanted their wife or their husband, whatever. You know, it was the easiest way.
Women were of a different status then, and they were used as pawns in, you know, in life. You know, you use a pawn in a chess game. They were used as pawns in situations. It's like if you wanted rid of, you know, your daughter who you just like couldn't afford to keep. Oh, she had sex with the lord of the manor, you know, and then all of a sudden she's gone, and like, you know, and that's how people use, or they use them in marriages and things like that, and then their husbands would get bored with them and say, "I seen her cavorted with the devil out in the fields last night." The sad thing is, it went on a lot more than you would actually believe. These kind of accusations were thrown around more and more than, you know, nowadays you'd go, yeah, all right, of course they were. But back then, people took it serious. If you got accused of with the devil, they're not really the right to kill you, you know?
And I mean, it all started off because we Alice, she had it was a peddler going to market, had a stroke, and he accused her of being a witch. But obviously back in the days, you know, nobody knew what a stroke was, you know. But she was accused of cussing.
They just had a malady, wouldn't they, or something like that.
It was,
well, yeah, it was a black dog as well, wasn't it? Did they not say that there was a black dog who showed up at the same time or something like that? This is all off my head. Well, yeah, was there not a black dog involved, and you know, like a black shuck? In legend, it's like called a black shuck, which is like a demon dog or a devil dog or something like that. And they said that she had this black shuck with her, didn't they? If I remember one of the tellings of it. But yeah, again, it's just he didn't die straight away though, him, did he?
No, he didn't die.
Did he not?
He was actually on the verge of forgiving Alice. You know, because Alice went to him and begged for her, you know, begged for his forgiveness, and he was going to forgive her, but it was actually his son that went and reported her to the magistrate. Son, he was saying, "I'm having none of this. I'm going to report you." But the actual peddler himself was going to forgive her, and so the son went, accused Alice, and then that was it. It just snowballed through there.
It was that pesky Malleus Maleficarum, wasn't it? The witch hunter book. that did a lot of damage, that witch hunter book.
Oh, it did. And the other thing back then is, I mean, you had the witch finders, you know, like Matthew Hopkins, blah, blah, blah. Most of them were just out for money.
You know, You would think the amount of people they accuse are on commission, wouldn't you? Like she's
Aye,
away.
the more witches that they executed, burned or hung, whatever they done with them, the more money they got, and the higher it raised them in the eyes of the king or the local council or whoever. And so they were just, to me, they were just executing women mostly, right, left, and centre.
Yeah.
And
James were it on. It was James of Scotland, weren't it, on the throne?
James the First.
Yeah, see, now you're making me think of all having to pull all this up off my head here. When somebody does as many legends as I do, I have to keep I'm dragging it up. Yeah, I totally think though that that book, it was a tool used by men, and I'm not the biggest feminist, I don't give into all this. Oh God, he's a man, he's bad. But at that time, I think it was used as a tool. There was some of the people they accused of being witches was ridiculous. It was they were healers. There were no doctors. Women did the healing. Women are nurturers. They did the healing. And if your next door neighbour just said, but I seen her talking to the devil in the garden, or I seen her cavorting in the fields, and she was naked dancing around. That right? There was no proper trial. You literally wait until proven guilty, then you were guilty, until maybe proven innocent. And they were all used as techniques. Say there were two young girls and there was one male suitor, and one he was talking to one more than the other. Then the other female would go, no, she worships the devil. She's a witch, and that'd be it. She'd be carted off, and then she'd have the male. It happened all the time.
And another thing is, obviously back then, people who were sort of mentally ill, one way or the other, and it wasn't understood back then. So, you get people these days, they'll sit and talk to themselves, out loud. I've seen quite a few of them do it. And back then, if you walk by and you seen sort of, a woman sitting talking to herself, obviously mental, had mental health problems, but you say, I saw her talking to a spirit in the field. Do you know what I mean? That was it. Cool. The poor woman was maybe just sitting talking to herself, but all it took was somebody saying she was talking to a spirit, and bang, you were off. You were in the back of the car, and I went to the well, and all the rest. It was, it was just. But the thing is, it's a very dark part of British history, because it happened, everywhere. And you had North Berwick witch trials as well, which we're going to cover. So what other kind of legends? There's loads of legends about. Have you got any kind of particular, kind of legends that you really are into?
I like Black Shuttler, Devil Dogs. I like, oh God, there's just so many, and they've all got good. Like I said, don't look for the truth really in a legend unless you can really get back to the origins, because they are really a good story. I've just started, which I want to look in a bit more. The last, before I put up my trick or treat one tonight, the one before that was a Japanese legend, and I've just really started looking into Japanese legends because they're so good, and I never realised, we have loads in this country. We have a load in this country, but I came across this legend. I was actually looking for Japanese superstitions because some of them are fantastically funny. And I actually came across this legend. So then I went and I had a look for a few more. So that I'm going to start looking at a few more Japanese legends. I do like devil dog legends. And they actually happen a lot more than you think. You know, like the black shucks or the dead dogs or things like that. I've done a few fair legends. They're interesting. I just think, do you know what it is? The world's your oyster when you come to them, because there's something everywhere. It's like this trick or treat. Everybody knows that I did tonight. Everybody knows the saying trick or treat, you know. And my mum would always say, bloody American, it's commercial. Those bloody Americans bringing it over here, bloody, it's all commercial just to get you to spend more money, blah. As it actually turns out, it was my mum's Irish. It was the Irish and Scottish immigrants who took guys in back to America in the 19th century that actually set America on the way towards doing trick-or-treating. So she can blame America all she wants, but it was Irish and Scottish immigrants that brought it to America in the first place. And it was called guising or souling, not trick-or-treating. In the 9th century, it was first called mumming, and then it changed in the 16th century to souling and guising. In Scotland, it was guising. And then when it went over to America in 1927, the immigrants took it over in the 1900s, and in 1927 is the first reported telling of trick-or-treat. It was actually not even an American newspaper, it was a Canadian newspaper that first coined the phrase trick-or-treat in 1927. But it all comes from England and Scotland, well, the British Isles. You know, we had mumming here, and then there was guising and souling in Scotland and Ireland, and it actually all started here. So in like the 9th century, they'd ask for ale, money, and food, and then it was nuts and fruits in the changed like nuts and fruits in the 16th century, when they went, and prayers. If you ain't guising or souling, you'd ask for certain. You had to do a trick like play an instrument, dance, or something like that, and then they'd give you like a pastry or fruit or something like that, and then you had to offer up a prayer to them for giving you this thing. So and it was like a prayer for the dead, because it all goes back to death and respect to the death. You know, like Ryan Samhain, Halloween, and things like that. And it all actually intertwines when you look back at it. It's really interesting. And I never even thought about it. I would have sat here the other day and I thought, I wonder where trick-or-treat comes from. But I think it was Monday, because I never knew.
I'd always wondered where trick-or-treat came from. The same as the dunking for apples. A dunking for apples. I don't know what you call it down there.
Bobbing for apples is divination. It's a form of divination. That's where it comes from originally. And there's lots of different takes on it. Some will say it was a Celtic divination technique that was merged with a Roman celebration of Samhain. You know, it was Samhain in Celtic. But I'm not sure what the Roman take would be on it. It's not Saturnalia, is it, or something? I'm not sure anyway. And it was an amalgamation, but it's not. It was actually described in 1902 in a book by, I can't remember his name, but what happened, there was bob for apples, going back, you know, to Celtic pagan early times. Apples were the fruit of life. Yeah, so they would bob for it, and when they got it, they had to peel it in one solid peel, and they had to pass it round the head 3 times, like that, and then they had to get thrown over the shoulder, the peel, and then when you went to look at the peel, the J or a H or that would be an initial that you had to look out for, either for a future love, a future husband, a future wife, that kind of thing. It was divination. They used it as divination technique. So Yeah. And I can't remember it. I can't believe I remembered that off my head either, but that's what it was. It's a
It's
form of
amazing.
divination.
It's amazing some of the things you remember, and some of the things you just totally, go right out, right out
I
your
just
head.
do that many. I just do that many things. I'm going to turn my camera off while I have a cigarette. I'll still be here. I just want a cigarette. I don't want to smoke on your stream.
That's fine though. So what about local kind of Halloween legends around your kind of area?
Do you know, I was thinking, and I can't, besides the Bannister Dog where, it was, I told you off stream, so I'll tell the people on the stream. There was a local girl in the 1700s and, sorry, it was the 1800s, and you have like old tenement housing on a road, and she was a pretty young girl. She was 17, but she looked a lot younger, a lot smaller. And they called her Bannister Doll because her father was called Mayor Bannister, so and she was a Bannister, but they called her Bannister Doll because she was so young and porcelain, China doll like. She went out and got herself in the family way at the age of 17 and had to come home and tell her dad that she was that, in the family way. He wasn't a nice man anyway, and he dragged her out of the house by her hair, tied her to a pole in the street, and whipped her to death. Obviously, awful way to go, but that's where the legend starts. 3 men were killed in the first 3 days after she'd died in unusual circumstances in the area.
Right.
And then in the 60s, on it was October, but I'm not sure what day we were. A milkman actually seen her, and he was that scared. He dropped the bottles, and they were proper glass bottles then, on the floor, jumped in his milk cart and drove off and didn't finish his round. A postman seen her, and it's actually called Snow Hill, the road that she was killed, lived on and killed on, and she was buried in the church. Now the church isn't there anymore, where she was buried. It was actually at the top of a road, but it isn't actually there anymore. The gates are still there, but the church isn't. It's a car park now. And over the years, the legend became that no single man could walk around that area by the time, from night time. So, and it literally, everybody actually stuck to this. Men did not walk around the area because men were being killed, and brutally so. And over the years, the legends evolved and changed. And we used to get told that if you stand, like Bloody Mary, stand on the stairs on Halloween and shout, but we had to shout it, not whisper to the shout, Bannister Doll, Bannister Doll, Bannister Doll. Show yourself she'd appear to you on the stairs, and no, nobody ever got to 3. We'd all scream and run off. But the thing was, people were actually being killed. We can prove 2 of the deaths. 2 of the deaths, they're actually reported in newspapers of the time. One of them was laid out fully dressed, but was gutted right up. So 2 of the deaths can be proven, but they said it was 3 in the thing, but 2 of them can actually, from the time period that they're saying, there's 2 that can be, but there's no, there's actually no evidence. There's evidence of somebody called Mayor Bannister, but there isn't evidence of him having a daughter. Can't find evidence of her. But then again, would it have been covered up because he was, mayor kind of thing? Would that have been covered up? Would he, if it's true, would it have been covered up? But yeah, apparently she still haunts Preston to this day, and it's, It's really strange because I did a video on it ages ago, and somebody from our local university, Lancaster University, got in contact with me because I posted it in a group, Preston group, and he said, "Oh God, can I have your research on that?" He said, "I can look at. I've been like somebody told me this tale, and I didn't know anything about it." So I gave him all the stuff I had on it. But it's this is what I mean about a legend. It grew every year, and it changed, and it evolved, and it evokes not only fear but kind of like women's lib as well. Yeah, go on.
Aye. As I said earlier on, a bit gets added and added on. I mean, obviously the legend starts. There's a starting point to every legend.
But you can't always find it. That's the thing. You can't always find a true start to every legend. It's like the apple bobbing story, that legend I just told you, that they used it as divination. There isn't a true, like I said, some will say it's a combination between Celtic, the Romans. Others will say it's an English thing. Others will say it's a Scottish thing. And they'll all have different names for them. So sometimes you just can't get to the truth of where it actually started. You just can't, no matter how hard you dig, or how far you go back, because there'll be 3 or 4 or 5 different things that all say that's the true start of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes you can't find it. But, do you always need to know that because it's still a good tale or a good story or,
That's it. It's just some people don't need to know where it originated from. It's just, I remember years and years, I must have been in my early teens, and my mum, for some reason, bought me, I'll never forget the title, it was called Myths, Legends and Folklore of Scotland. And I must have been at 13, 14, something like that. And at first, I was a normal teenager, and I thought, what the hell are you buying me this for? And well, I was a young teenager, and your mum's buying you, that kind of book. You think, next to be a fine. Exactly. Action Man, Electrics, whatever. But I got a book, and but see, once I started reading it, I think this is where my interest in the paranormal kind of started as well, because I started reading it, and the book stayed with me all these years. Because I started reading it, and I get really, really interested in it. And I read, it was a good thick, it was a big hardback book. It was more like an encyclopedia kind of thing, a big thick book. And I read the whole thing, and I must have read it 2 or 3 times. And I really loved this book. Whereas at the start, I was saying to my mum, what the hell you book? Where's my Electric set? You're buying me a bloody book. You know what I mean? And I think, teenager. And I think maybe that's what got me first interested in the paranormal, because it was after that I started getting into horror films and vampires and all the usual stuff you start to get into it first. But I think that's maybe what kicked off my whole interest, and I've been interested in all that kind of stuff ever since. And some legends, I mean, like I say, you've got legends of all. What's your views on the kind of Loch Ness Monster type legend?
I believe that people are seeing something. Do I believe it's Nessie? No. But I believe they're seeing something. But again, are they gonna lose all the business that they get from Nessie and things like that? And I do think they've probably faked some of it over the years, because they do need that income now. They do need that business coming to the place. So I think somebody's probably seen something originally, and they've not been able to explain it at the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I always say at the time, because I've actually don't know much about Nessie. I don't know when she was first spotted. But what 1800s were it?
It dates back centuries to Saint Columbus or something. What I can find, we can do a thing on it actually because it's part of history.
I think it was Columbus, Scott.
Saint Columbus. It's come back centuries, so the story's been.
Well, I mean, you think about we know through history that people's spirituality, people's views were totally different. Anything they couldn't explain was either evil, nasty, alien in a way, if you will. You know, it was never like a normal thing. Whereas now, if somebody had seen the first sighting of Nessie now, would it be a thing? Or would they say, oh no, it's just a seal in the water, or it's just a fish, or it's just a piece of rubbish, or, you know, it's plant life, you know, or what have you. Would Nessie exist if that first sighting that can be reported, if it were reported today?
Well, you see, the first sighting was way back, centuries ago, and obviously way back then, anything, you know, it could, I mean, sorry, Sarah?
It was in 565 AD, so that's how long ago it was.
Wow, that really does go back. I've never done this, so it's not something I've actually investigated or looked at. But yeah, I mean, you understand what I mean. If that first recounting of it was done today, and you look at it, so when I see somebody else, you know, and if somebody says, "Do I believe it?" I'll say, but at the time they did believe it, and that's, you know, that's the whole difference. It doesn't matter whether I believe it now. At the time, because of the situation they're in, they didn't have the technologies we had. They didn't have, you know, they were brought up with superstitions, with, you know, tales of the devil, of, you know, and this is how they lived their life. They were superstitious people. That's how they were brought up, you know, and believed in God and church and, you know, or whatever, whether it was paganism or it still had rules and regulations in a spirituality kind of way. So it doesn't matter whether I think it is, because at the time they literally did believe it. They weren't faking it, were they? Am I really full of evil?
Okay, I mean, as far as Nessie, some people say it's a legend. I mean, I'm Scottish, as you can tell. I've been up and down the side of Loch Ness many a time. I've swam in Loch Ness as well a couple of times. I've never seen anything, you know, not even a ripple in the water. But saying that, I do believe there is something. I'm not saying it's a dinosaur or some kind of big monster. I believe there is. It could be a whale, because Loch Ness is open to the sea.
How
deep
is it's really deep at one point, isn't it? Loch Ness. It is really deep.
It's the deepest loch in Scotland, but it's also 26 miles long as well.
Do they actually know how deep it is, though?
I don't think they know exactly how deep it is. They know it's 26 miles long.
Yeah, I think wants to ask Google. I go, hey Google, you're going to work for me. How deep is Loch Ness? I've not got my involved. 227 meters, apparently. That's bloody deep.
I don't know that. Well, it's 3 feet in a meter. Is it?
Yeah.
It works out at 655 feet.
So it's pretty deep, and it's 26 miles long. So you're talking about a lot of water. Plus, as I say, it connects to the sea. I believe there is something in it. What it is, I'm not saying, as I say, I'm not saying it's a dinosaur or some kind of big monster. It could be. I mean, it could be a whale. Who knows?
Yeah, at the deepest part, 755 feet. Yeah, at its deepest part. I mean, who knows what's down there? Seriously, you know. I mean, you look at it. There's only 5% of the seas been explored. Considering you think of it another way, right? 70% of the earth is water, and only and sea, and only 5% of the seas have been explored. So that puts it into perspective when you think about it like that, doesn't it?
We don't. I watched a film. It was one of these made-up films, but it was about this crew of divers, and they found this. They thought it was a seabed, but it turned out it wasn't. It was some kind of cloud covering, and it actually went through it, and it was a whole different, world underneath this cloud thing. I'm talking about sea life. I'm not talking about people or something. There was all these different fish, and I thought, well, that's a film just made up for Hollywood, but who's to say that's not true? We just don't know. It's the same. I think it's the same with legends as well, whether for Halloween or just every day. Some could be true, or there are legends out there you think, oh, no chance, no way has that ever happened. But then there is some legends that could be true.
Look at Atlantis. Who's to say Atlantis didn't exist? Maybe it existed on land, and the story that it was an underground civilization only came after it had been sunk. Because I mean, the earth has changed so much, and it's moved. You look at thousands of years ago, and where land masses are, even in this area, it's all changed. So who say it wasn't part of a landmass that sunk or got broke off and sunk, and the legends came from people actually remembering and being passed down that a lot of people died on this island that went down, and strange things have happened that they don't want to know that these people have died, so they're living on under the sea, and that tale got took off, and all of a sudden there's a civilization that lives under the sea, and this is how these things start. It's so easy to start these kind of things. It's like Babylon. Another one.
That was Eddie saying they're so deep where military won't even try to dive through. I mean, if you think even something like Titanic's supposed to like 2 miles down or something, and I thought about that when I first heard that, I was thinking, well, where we live, we're about 2 miles from our town centre. And so it might sound nuts, but I was sitting there in my head, imagining that distance as water, going down the way, and you think, that's immense. You just can't imagine, I mean, it'd take maybe about half an hour or something to walk into town, and that's a lot of water, basically. I mean, it's
well, it's like the megalodon, isn't it? The big shark, the prehistoric shark that they claimed, the megalodon. Who's to say that that's not still around, living in deeper waters? I mean, sharks are more notorious for living in shallow waters, but who's to say it hasn't adapted over the last billion years to live in deeper waters? Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely crazy.
Well, Europe is meant to be part of the mainland of Europe is meant to be all connected to Scotland at one point. No Scotland, to Britain.
Yeah.
And it all broke up, where earthquakes or whatever. So, have you ever? Obviously, I've looked at a lot of legends and what have you. Have you ever came across a legend and you just don't know it's totally absurd? You're just kind of blew out of the water right away because it's just so ridiculous.
Oh. No. And I'll tell you why. It's because I don't expect them to be based in truth and fact. After doing them you know, like I said, I used to do them maybe once a month or something when I had my paranormal ITC channel going. I used to do, you know, once every 2 months, but I've done a lot of them. And I think you kind of come to realise that, like I said to you, they don't have to be truthful. They don't have to be based in truth. There doesn't have to be an origin to them. Because you kind of, if it's a good story, it's a good story, you know? So, although I like to find the origin to them, and I like to do the research and look, a lot of the time I'm finding different tellings of it, you know, and so I try to go for a middle ground, and when I do my videos, I try to go for like incorporate a bit of everything in it that I found at different ones, but I don't think it's a different, because the legend's supposed to be based in some kind of truth somewhere back, and a myth is supposed to be the story that isn't, you know. But I think I found with a lot of legends, they're probably more myths than legends, although they're going to be classified as legends. But I don't expect to find a starting point with all of them. Like the fairy ones, you know, that I've done about fairy queens and things like this. Do I believe in fairy queens and the underland, you know, and things like that? And not really, but you know, the legends, and they're a good tale, you know. Christine the car. It's actually, you know, a bit of a legend now. Do I believe a car? You know, and they actually can find the car that it was based on, you know, or the Porsche, the little bastard, James Dean's Porsche, which is supposed to be, it's been rebuilt and people have still been killed by it. Pieces have gone in other cars and that car's been killed, and people in that car have been killed, and things like that. Do I believe that this is true? No, it's probably a coincidence, you know, but that doesn't stop you telling. You know, I don't think the car's haunted. I don't think it's got an evil intent. I don't, you know, it's just a legend that's going to be passed on, you know? Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting, the James Dean Porsche, though. That's a really interesting thing. I think a doctor rebuilt it all up at one point, and then he ended up dying, and, you know, and it's actually, it was shown in I think it's actually still on display, or part of it, in a museum, and somebody walked up and they shouldn't have touched it or something, and he ended up having a heart attack, and, you know, it just, the stories that are told around the Porsche is crazy. Some of the stuff that supposedly happened.
I mean, with that car, it might sound totally nuts, but you know, think maybe possible that it's something to do with maybe the paintwork in the car or some of the cars made. I mean, look at the cursor to I can never say his name. Tutankhamun. You know, we know there's quite a few people died, you know, in the days and weeks, months to come. And so they all blamed it on this curse. But it turned out it was actually some kind of chemical or something in the air that had been trapped inside the pyramid. And also when they opened it, these people were exposed and they ended up dying at different times. But everybody says it's the curse of Tutankhamun. You maybe the cars, maybe some of the paintwork, or maybe the seats, or, you know, it might sound nuts. You know,
could be anything, you see, and this is why I say don't know yet. And you know, and it's like a lot of really good ghost sightings that are quite hard to explain away. I always say, well, they can't find an explanation yet, because who's to say that another you know, piece of software, another camera, something's not going to turn up in the next 10 years that couldn't explain it away. You should always add yet. Can't explain it yet. Because they just can't. James Dean's cars, I think they've literally had parts of it that have gone in other places, though. And that's, you know, not worked out for them. But you think about it, there's viruses and illnesses that are buried so far down under the ice that they've dug up at certain places from, before the ice age, like from, and things like that. They've dug that far down, and there's viruses and bugs that would kill us, in them, and we've no cure for them because they're prehistoric,
Yeah.
So you understand why something in a tube, that a chemical, could have done it. Things like that do happen, don't they?
So, and around the world in every culture is much something.
You can actually see them, if you look online, there's maps where you can actually see where the floods actually happened at the time, and it'll follow it, because they actually did happen. The floods happened, maybe not in the biblical sense with Noah and his ark and 2 by 2, but you can actually see that, in history around the time where the Bible, the Old Testament and Quran and the Torah say, you can actually see that floods did happen there. You can see them on these maps. They're online. You can have a look. You can see where the floods actually were. Yeah, Beth.
Right, Beth, thanks very much for coming in. So you've got two channels, is that right?
I have Max Myths and Legends, and for fact's sake, it is called For Fact's Sake. So, for fact's sake, I do little short, highly edited videos, and I'll make a nice normal fact into something that's maybe got a little innuendo in there, shall we say? They're just for fun. I do. They're like a minute long of that, I'll do little, but I edit them a lot and make them a bit naughty-ish in a way. But it's just for fun, just something to do. I like my facts, So.
Maisy's pages are well worth a look. So, what's your plans for the weekend? What are you getting up to at Halloween, any?
Well, nothing really, because being agoraphobic, I don't go out. My grandkids are coming round to show me their outfits tomorrow before they're going on, because you can't go trick-or-treating. In their area, they've set up like little stations and put like little, doing like, not a treasure hunt per se, but that kind of thing. But it's a witch hunt doing, and they've got little maps, and they're going to follow around, with all the family units. They've got to do it, obviously, with the COVID, and then they get to the next station and they find out the next clue, and then they've got to go. So and there's like treats on the tables and things like that. So that's what they're doing in there, which I think is really cool, considering they can't go trick-or-treating,
I know,
so
it's a kind of, obviously can't be helped, but it's a big bummer for the kids. I mean, I think it's, I was talking to somebody today and he says this is the first dry Halloween in maybe 4 or 5 years, and the kids can't go out, and, as a bummer for them.
But I think if you're going to do legends, don't expect them automatically to be true. Find things that entertain you, because there's hundreds of legends out there. Thousands. They're not all going to be true, but just find something that. The way I do it, I find something that either will make me smile or make me intrigued. And that's when I'm researching legends and looking for them. And like I said, I've just started some Japanese ones, which I want to do more of. It's things that will either intrigue me, something that's different in them, aside from any other legend, or something that'll make me smile. Because they're not all doom and gloom. Not all legends are doom and gloom.
No, they're not every time, a legend is going to be about witchcraft or, you know, vampires, werewolves, you know, whatever, and it's all about death and blood, and but there's a lot of them that aren't. You know, the fairy tales, legends of fairies, and that. Personally, no offence to anybody's into it, I don't put a lot of thing into the fairies and that. I'm not a big believer in it.
I think the tales come from somewhere. I think the myth or mythological like thing about it comes from somewhere. It's very big in Ireland, and being Irish, my mum we was always brought up with the shining ones, the shining people. They believe it undoubtedly. You know, when you go in the fields and you're walking along the fields and you'll see the mushroom rings, you know, the toadstool rings and the mushroom rings. My mum, if she thought we were going to step on one of them, she'd literally drag us back because she was convinced that if we stepped in there, we'd be stuck in time because it was a fairy ring, you know, and she was convinced of it because it's so prevalent in Ireland, the fair, you know, the shining people. So, you know, and you wouldn't think, you know, this stuff feels gladly, but they're convinced of it. You know, a lot of people in Ireland are convinced of it.
They all kind of originate there.
Voodoo, very interesting voodoo. Yeah. I've done a video. You can go and look, Nicole, on Poppet Dolls. If you go to my channel.
I've not looked at your other channel. I think Nicole, her daughter, they dressed up as a zombie. She actually looked really good. She looked amazing.
I haven't done much on my other channel yet. I've only got a few videos up there. But that's just for fun, you know, just Vlad, I am doing a stream about Vlad. I'm actually going to try do it live. I don't tend to do my myths and legends live. But I've been working on this for like 3 months and things keep getting in the way. And it's like, you know, family gets, you know, we all have families and you know how things get chucked out of place. And I've been researching it for about 6 months and I've been trying to write it for about 3 months and it keeps getting put on the back burner. I've got pages and pages of documents at the minute already on it, but it's like, it's one of those things. I want to actually do a presentation on it and do it live and do like a proper presentation on it. Cause it's really, I was looking at to do not just on Vlad, but on vampires and the evolution of them through the centuries. When they were first mentioned, you know, I was looking to do like a whole thing. That's what I'm trying to do, but just everything has just been getting in the way of me trying to do it. It's crazy. And I will tell you this though, if you're thinking Bram Stoker based Dracula on Vlad the Impaler, you're going to be surprised. Because it's not really.
It'll be a cat gate. We have two of them, 2 little cats.
Mine are around as well. Oh, baby. There you go. That's one of mine. My other is all black. Hey, say hi, baby. Say hi.
Yeah.
Because like mum put me down. Oh no.
Come see hello. Look.
Oh, what's that, baby? She's actually looking at the screen. What's that, baby? Where is she? What's that, baby? She's like, I'm not looking now, mum. You can get lost. My other one's a black cat. Oh, she's my familiar.
Come on, Fatty. You come say hello. Want to say hello?
Do you have 2?
We have 2.
Sarah.
Yeah.
I have two. My daughter has two. Actually, my cats.
They're pain in the
My cats.
backside.
Sorry.
Our cats are pain in the backside, especially the little one.
They wake you up at silly o'clock.
Oh, he comes in, right, the back of 5 in the morning, and he literally sits on top of me and Scott's head until we wake up. I'm like, go away.
And you know how rough cats' tongues are? My cats took to licking me up my nose.
Cats' tongues are the horriblest thing in the full wide world that are horrible. Oh.
Yeah. Now, Hallie, she's the insistent one. If I go to Skyride, when she comes in and she sits outside the bed and she looks at me when she wants reading, I'll go, what do you want? She'll go, at me. Now, with Hallie will just come up and start wanting to love me. Hallie's my old black cat. I should be a witch because I've got an old black cat. I just wanted to read. I actually found a superstition before, Halloween superstition, and it was something I'd never actually heard of. You know when you read something and you're like, no. Now, somebody in your chat might have actually heard this, but it was something I've never heard before. It said people used to believe that Satan was a nut gatherer. Nuts were also used as magic charms on the day of Halloween festival. So Satan was a nut gatherer. I've never heard that nuts were used as magic charms. It's something I've never heard. Have you heard of that, Sarah?
I can't say I have.
That it was a nut gatherer. No, and I read a lot of weird stuff. I have never heard that Satan was a nut gatherer. I was like, what? When I was reading it. And why would Satan be out gathering nuts? Does he not have like history that far in for Satan?
It's a bit weird, isn't it? It's like some of the superstitions we're going to cover tomorrow night. Some of them are totally bizarre.
Yeah. I tell you what I found though, a lot of superstitions for Halloween were very forget the death, they were all about love. And if you do this, you'll find your future husband. And if you do this, it'll give you the initial of your future husband. And if you do this, and I was like, Halloween's apparently all these old superstitions are like a love fest.
I know you're going to tomorrow night, Mags. We're doing the second part to Halloween extravaganza. Tomorrow night we're doing a quiz. We're doing Halloween superstitions, Halloween origins.
Sure, if you can base the cats in there.
Yes.
Do your cats like to go out at like 11 o'clock at night when you want them in the house?
See, at the moment, our cats are both under one. One of them's about 8 months, and one of them's 6 or 7 months. So they're not really the black cat. She goes out if Scott's outside, like if he's doing the back grass or whatever. That cat will go outside. She'll go outside and wander about the garden. But the little one, he's not really bothered about going out. I don't really want them to go out because me and Scott's actually got a big grey cat who we get flooded way back last year. So we had to move out of this house. So the cat, he still stayed round about our house and was feeding him. So now he's decided that he's not coming home. But he still sits outside my house. So I'm scared that if I let my cat out, the other cat's going to decide, oh no, wait a minute, they're in my house. What's going on?
Oh. So, are they sisters or brothers or I don't know, are they female, male?
We got the black one first.
Right.
And then I decided, in all my wisdom, that Pepper needed a friend. So we got Toby. So there's from different littles.
That's kind of what happened with my cats. My son, my eldest son, who's 33, coming up, got Hallie, my black one, for my daughter for her 18th birthday, and she was only like 7-8 weeks old. And when and he went, do you know, Mum? He said there was a cat left. He said a little black and white one. He said I felt bad taking, like Hallie, because she was left by herself, the little black and white one. I went, all right, wish it. And he went, yeah. And then Chloe, behind me back, went and got Sky, which is the black and white one, the tuxedo one, about 4 days later, because nobody had took this cat. So 4 days later, she got our Martin, and she hid her in a room for a week because she knew I'd be mad that she'd got it behind me back. So she hid her in the room for a week. And then but because, like all mums, and you will find as they get older, it doesn't get any better. I paid for the feed, I paid for the trays, I paid for the, everything that went with the cats. And Chloe would go, oh, they're my cats. And I went, in what universe are they your cats? I pay for everything, vets and everything, and they sleep on my bed. So tell me in what universe they are your cats. So when she moved out, I went, you're not taking them. They're my cats. And she went, Martin bought it for my 18th birthday. I said, and when did you pay for anything to do with the cats? And where do they sleep? I said, on my bed. I went, you're not taking my cats. So as soon as she moved into her house, she got the cat that had their mum had another litter when Chloe moved into her house. So Chloe got sisters. Chloe's got my cat's sisters. So she still ended up with 2 cats. She got my cat's sisters.
See, that's how, obviously our wee girl's only 4. And she was like, the little cat's a boy, and she's like, oh, that's my boy. I'm like, really? I was like, she fed them, right? Scott will say to her, right, go and feed your cat. She's like, no, I don't want to feed my cats. You do it. It's your job.
To let you know, Max, we the first one, it was the grey one, but then we got the other one, Pepper, the female. And then one Wednesday night, Sarah was at her mum's, and she mailed me to say, Sarah had been hunting to get another cat, and I was like, no. Sarah mailed me to say, we're picking up a cat in about an hour's time, something like that, kitten. I was like, you what? So then it says, I'll change his box, and I'll look after it. And I still remember the text, I'll change his box, it says forever, she put on it.
I don't like to say more for you, but more for you.
Mm-hmm.
But in my defence, I only done it that way because I knew if I'd been talking to Scott about it, he would just keep saying no. So I thought, right, I'm going to organise the kitten. Then I'll text Scott an hour before it and say, look, it wasn't even an hour, Scott. It was like 20 minutes or something. And I text him, I said, can you come get me in 20 minutes? 20 minutes. We're going to get
If Scott wants to believe it, that's on him, isn't it? Let's be honest. You can say what you want. If Scott wants to believe it, that's on Scott.
So I change the cats. I don't change the cats, sorry. No, I change the litter. I feed the cats and all the rest of it. Sarah does 0.
But I feed them. Rob does the litter. That's how it works in our house. My other half does the litter. I feed them. And when they need worming, I have to do that because Rob said, I can't do it. And I went, what do you mean you can't do it? He said, I can't hurt him. I went, oh, wow. Oh, how cute is that?
That was our little girl today, dressed up as she was meant to be a zombie. But she looks too cute to be a zombie.
That is so sweet. Oh my Lord! I said to I was like, oh! I said to me, my kids. I said, bring my grandkids around before you take them out tomorrow. I want to get some pictures of them in the. All right, Isaac and Sierra. There's only a week between them. I got 2 grandchildren in the space of 6 days. So my eldest one is Isabella, and then Isaac, Sierra, and I've just got a new grandbaby 3 weeks ago called Lenny, and he's a cutie. So it's I said I want to see them all dressed up before they go out on the witch hunt because they're all going together. To absolutely love elements and elemental anything. Yeah, a lot of people do believe in it. It's Claire, isn't it? Wisteria Energy Twister. It's Claire, isn't it? I've seen her in chat. Yeah, a lot of people do. I think it's very closely related to witchcraft and paganism to believe in the elements, elementals, earth, air, water. You know, these things are always used in witchcraft, aren't they, and paganism. So, you know, I mean, my brother's a pagan. I'm a nothing, and he's a pagan. You know, I'm an ex-Catholic. My brother's gay, and when the Catholic Church excommunicated him for being gay, that was me gone. You know, people are what they are, aren't they?
Hey, Eddie, how you doing, brother? You've met Max, haven't you?
Hey, Scott. Hey, Sarah. Hi, Max. How you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm doing good. I had a really good discussion in chat with Nicole and that, and we were talking about, you know, elementals. We talked about legends and wars and myths, and we had a really good conversation going on.
Yeah, it's interesting, aren't they? I think to be able to just be able to talk and not get crap nowadays on in the paranormal.
I think nowadays, though, legend and lore is all by word of mouth. There's nothing proven, nothing gained.
No.
Everybody believes what story they're told.
But you see, when I tell the story, I just look at it in that way. You know, I look at it as a good story. I'm not there to prove anything to anybody else.
I'm not saying it's a bad story. I'm not saying it's a bad story. But if there's no proof,
but you know, when you do a legend, just do it because it's a good story. And I enjoy a good story. I enjoy a good tale. I enjoy a good myth. If they make you feel good listening to them, then I'm doing my job.
All right, so I want to ask you something, Max. Do you believe in the truth?
I believe that there is truth, and I believe that there's stories, and but you can't always find the truth of a legend. Like I said, I can go back and try to look for an origin of a legend, and I'll find 5 different things. You know, 5 different stars. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be the same part of the world. They can be dotted all over, and I can research for ages trying to find the origin of any specific legend that I do. But there's never really one specific area or one specific thing. Occasionally there is. They're quite easy to find, but not always. You know, and I don't put them out as the truth. I put them out as a story. They're a legend. It's, you know, or a myth. I'm telling people a story. You know, I'm telling people a bit of history sometimes, because sometimes I can find the truth. Sometimes I can't find the starting point for it. You know.
Well, maybe just me, and people call me an asshole, and I get it, and I am an asshole. But if you can't find the truth, why? If you can't find the truth, why talk about the story?
I don't think it actually matters. I don't actually think it matters with legends, because for me, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, the boss spoke.
I'm not. Oh dear, he's in trouble.
I apologize. The boss spoke. The boss spoke. I had the
Yeah, I don't feel a need to try to do what I do. I just feel a need to tell the story if I enjoy it. You know, the legend if I enjoy it, the myth if I enjoy it. I find them entertaining and comforting sometimes. You know that these.
Okay.
Yes, I think a lot of them happened. Can I find the original origin for them? Not always. Do I think it matters? Not really. You know,
So
I
let
think
me ask you this, Mags. Since you're up here on panel, I want to ask you this question. Now you said that you love telling the stories, which is fantastic. The stories are always wonderful to hear. But how many miles has it changed from one person to another from you to tell this story? So
Exactly.
is the story what you're telling is the story of the person that started telling the story?
Because you try to find the person who first told it.
That's
He's
not what
gonna
I asked
find
you
it.
though. That's not that
Well, no, because
wasn't the question.
it could have gone past. It could have gone through 1,000 incarnations before it actually gets to what is actually being told now.
Okay, so
Like
a
I said,
story is a fairy
points.
tale. A story is a fairy
It's a
tale.
story.
I think we are
Fairy
legends.
tale.
I think we're legends. You'll never ever get to the bottom of it. You know,
You'll never get
Always.
to the truth on a story because nobody knows the truth.
and
And it could be thousands of years old. You know, and but I don't tell them the truth. I don't sit there and say this is gospel. My channel's entertainment. I never sit there and it's under entertainment. I don't sit there and say this is gospel. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you a story. That's a legendary story, you know, and that's what I'm doing. I don't sit there and preach. I sit there and tell the story. If you listen to any of my videos, I tell them like a story. I don't I don't say the gospel. I tell them as a story.
If you drop your link, Mags, I would be more than happy to come over and check out your stories. I really would. I'm one of the kind of people, huh?
Nicole will put my link in. She had it in before.
Okay, somebody can somebody drop Mags's link?
Yeah.
I'll be more.
Yeah. I tell a story. I tell them like a story. So, you know, I don't know. Just say I was when I do well.
I'm a person they call a realist. And stories, I'm fascinated by stories, but I'm also I'm more excited about proof behind it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I will always look for proof. And I will always look for proof. And if I can find the proof, I would put the proof in, but you can't always find the proof. And you'll see that. It's like the one I did today. I did on trick-or-treating. I found that it can actually date it right back to the first saying of trick-or-treat in 1927 in a Canadian newspaper.
Trick-or-treating started in the 9th century by the pagans.
Yes, but the first actually on trick-or-treat and the first saying
it was the 9th century, and I pulled it up. I've got it. I've got it right there. It says trick-or-treating may seem like a modern event, but you can trace its roots back to the Celtic.
It'll tell you the 9th century it was called mumming. Then it went on to sawing in the 16th century, and then it went on to guising in the 19th century, and then it was exported to America with the Scottish and Irish immigrants, and that was the sawing and guising that went over. But in 1927, it was first called trick-or-treat in a Canadian newspaper. So it went through different incarnations of it.
All right, so then tell me, who was the first one that found America?
Columbus, weren't it? Christopher Columbus.
Bullshit.
Wasn't
was not the land already occupied by Native Americans before Columbus came here?
Yeah, it was, but did they find it, or are they native to it, you see, and they call them Native Americans, so you would assume they were already there and didn't find it.
He only called it America because he said he found the land. No, he didn't. The land was already here. The Native Americans already occupied the land. He's the only one that gave it a name.
I kind of, and I've looked into it a bit, and there's actually a stone that they found in America, isn't there, for the Vikings, coming well before Columbus came as well. There's a theory about
right.
landing in, and there's a stone that has one of, and it was a woman Viking, and it was like, you know, high up in rank, and there's a stone they found in America somewhere that has her name on it, and so they think that that's one of the reasons why they think the Vikings was there in like the 1100s, you know, as well.
I don't know how to say this person's name. I don't want to mispronounce it, but I want to say Gay.
Yeah.
But I don't want to mispronounce that. It's Gay Morgan. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, it is.
And you're right. According to white people back then, it was Columbus, but Columbus never discovered America. America was already here. He only gave it the name.
Yeah.
Absolutely. See.
Clovis.
Involved with
Clovis, yeah.
Clovis was coming. And Columbus was not the first one to discover America. And this is what I'm saying about folklores, tales and legends and all that is, you know, word of mouth and history are two different things. What you're told from your ancestors and everything, you believe because they're your ancestors until you look up the actual goddamn truth.
Yeah, but you see, the truth isn't always the truth anyway. I mean,
the truth isn't always the truth.
No. It's what people perceive as the truth. That's what you get, because my truth and your truth could be totally different. And when you start telling a tale, no, it's not, because the telling of the truth is different. Because what I would perceive as the truth and what you would perceive as the truth can, in the same aspect, be told two different ways.
No, that's where you're wrong. If your history book and my history book are the same thing, how is it two different things?
All right, well, tell me how people perceive the Bible in different ways then, because the Bible, how people perceive each gospel in the Bible.
Hold on. How do we go from history to the Bible?
Because it's history for me. It's not a religious text. It's just a book.
It's been rewritten 13 times, and the last person that rewrote it.
But what I'm saying is, people, how they perceive a line in or a gospel in the Bible, that you can see the word in there and you can see what it says, but people will, how they perceive that can be different from person to person.
Anybody can.
Do you understand what I mean?
Anybody can perceive any sentence in any way, and I get that. But
it means different people. The truth means different things to different people.
No, the truth is the truth. It shouldn't mean anything different but the truth. If you're guilty, you're guilty. If you're innocent, you're innocent. There is no in between.
No, I agree with you, but people perceive the truth differently.
How can you perceive truth in a different manner if the truth is the truth?
Because your truth might be different than mine. That's why.
Mags, if you seen some guy shoot somebody and he killed them, okay? Right? We're gonna do this hypothetically. You seen this guy shoot somebody and kill him, and I seen the same thing. I'm standing there watching you. So how would your truth be different than mine?
Because there's a reason why a lot of eyewitness testimony gets thrown out of court, because people perceive things in a different way. What you see and what I would see in that instance can be totally different.
We're standing in the same goddamn spot.
No,
How are we
I've
saying
seen.
anything differently?
I witnessed accounts of the same event, all tell a different version of it. It happens.
Nice.
That's why I witness testimony is notoriously faulty.
We're standing side by side. We watch the same
Exactly.
crime.
Truth isn't always a singular action. I agree with you, Steve. Truth isn't always a singular action. It depends on we all perceive things differently.
Guys, thanks for having me up. She's confused me more than I've ever been in my life.
Sorry. And you call chaos.
You don't want to go there. I'll take you down a road you don't want to go. Don't go there. Okay? We're going to leave it at that.
Thanks for coming in, Eddie.
All right, brother. Have a good night. Sarah, love you. Love you, Scott.
Talk to you soon.
Love
Mags,
you.
nice talking to you.
Take care of yourself. Take care. Sorry. Pete, I do actually really believe in that truth is in the eye of the beholder as well. Do you know what I mean? People don't always see things the same way, and things don't always mean the same to every person. You know, I believe in your own truth in a lot of aspects, because we all see things differently, and we all see things differently at different points of our life as well. So if I saw something at my age now, I'm 49 at Christmas. So if I saw something at my age now and a teenager saw the same thing, it doesn't mean the same thing to both of us. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah. And that's why I say the truth isn't always black and white. It's not. The truth isn't always black and white. It means different things to different people and at different points of your life as well. I bet you believe things when you were younger that you don't believe now.
I mean, you know, stuff like the tooth fairy, there's all different kind of things that you believed when you were a kid, and you know, when you grow up, you think, no, that wasn't true. So like tooth fairy, Santa Claus, it might seem like trivial stuff, but when you're a kid, you believe that Santa Claus is real and he comes down your chimney. But you get a bit older, then you realise it's your mum and dad that put the presents out at night.
I mean, that gutting feeling. I can remember dragging that out for my daughter because my lads were so much older than my daughter. My eldest lad's like 12 years older than my daughter, and my middle child is 8 years older than my daughter. And I can remember threatening him, do not tell her that it's me, do not tell her, do not, because I really wanted her to have that experience of Santa Claus, and it was like, obviously you can't stop schools from telling them, but I think it's good to have that bit of, they need it, don't they? They need that bit of magic. So, kids learn.
I mean, like I said, when you were a kid, if you lost a tooth, whether, it came out itself or you went to the dentist, whatever, and your mum would say, put under your pillow, and maybe it was like 50 pence a tooth, for Tulsi, 50 pence a tooth. And in the morning, when you woke up and looked under your pillow, you were buzzing because that 50 pence was lying there, even though your dad had snuck in during the night and, swapped them. And see with Santa.
You don't sit there and dissect it. You take it as you've got that 50p. And that's,
You were paid 50 pence. That was it. You were off to the shop,
yeah. Oh,
Wisteria, I'm sorry, Wisteria. Sorry. Santa is real. Santa is real. He's got every house in the world in one night, and you see him in all the malls and shopping centre. He is real. Sorry, we're just kidding on that he's pretend. Just a human man.
I think we all want the truth of whatever, when you're in the paranormal, right? Forget legends. I mean, you're never going to really find the whole truth of a legend. And if you do, it's very rare and far between. But so let's go for when you're an investigator or a researcher in the paranormal, we all want the truth because lying to ourselves isn't going to help anybody. But still, I could put some evidence up and I can believe that that is the truth, right? I can sit there and swear down on whoever, you know, that that is the truth. But it's my truth. I believe that that is the truth. I believe that that is real. I believe that it is genuine, and I believe that I'm being honest, right? But it is all mine, right? It's literally all what I believe to be the truth. And you could sit there and look at that and say, yeah, but it could be this or it could be that. And I have to accept that as a fair point. And I'd have to look at those points and see if, you know, I can debunk it from what you've said. Because you can't sit there and just believe your own bullshit. Sorry for swearing, sorry. But you can't sit there and believe your own hype. You have to take other people's opinions into consideration because you might have missed something. And at the end of the day, if you're a genuine person, you want the truth. So to have somebody else say it could be something else, you have to take that on board and take it in good faith and try to see if what they're saying, you can, you know, maybe you can either debunk it or maybe you can turn around and say, no, I tried that. And, you know, I still think, you know, defend your evidence or say, no, you were bomb and, you know, and do that. But at the end of the day, it's still only my truth when I put something up as evidence. It's only what I think. I would try to be honest and open and genuine. You know, it's only what I believe. So it's my truth.
I think it is important to take other people's points of view or opinions on board and say, right, I'm listening to you. I might not agree with you, but, you know, I'm taking on board what you're saying. And I'll, you know, for instance, I'll tell you an example maybe. I mean, we've had a couple of times in here, the cat balls have been off, right? And nobody's been touching them. But we believe that's true, that we've got a capture. But other people might look at that and say, well, maybe you've not got a capture. There might have been a draft, you know, there might have been a vibration. Whatever you say, why? We know there wasn't. But you need to look at this other person and say, well, right, okay, maybe there was, even though we know ourselves, you know, there wasn't a vibration.
Personal evidence can't prove that to anybody. You're never going to be able to prove your personal evidence to anybody else. But you know it's true. You know it's true to the best of your ability. But, you know, like say when I've done spirit box sessions or EVP sessions or what have you, I can only tell you what I believe I've caught and what I think I've heard. What other people think they've heard or hear. I have to understand that and take that on board. You can't get pissy or upset every time somebody doesn't agree with you. Because it may be a valid point that they actually have. I mean, some people are just going to be idiots and have a go for the sake of it. But sometimes they might have a valid point. So you really do need to look at it, you know.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I went to see a medium in a different town to where I stayed. It was a spur of the moment thing. Nobody knew I was going. I just jumped in the car last minute. I'd never been to this church before. Jumped in the car. I went myself. Nobody knew me in the place. This woman, the medium that night told me, and Sarah's disappeared. However,
jump back in.
There she's there. This medium turned and told me straight away, you've got a daughter in the spirit world, and her name's Donna, and she's been on your knee since you came in.
Oh.
With Diane. I lost a wee girl when she was just over 5 months called Donna. Then nobody knew me in that place, not one soul. I didn't even live in that town. And so I was telling, she told me other stuff as well, but I'm just using one thing as an example. I told other people, you know, what happened, and they were saying, maybe somebody was there that recognised you. Maybe, you know, maybe somebody overheard you talking about it. And I said, well, I never spoke to anybody because I didn't know anybody. I walked in, I got a seat, I sat down, that's it. Nobody in there knew me. So I knew it was true what this woman had told me, but other people were putting there, as we say up here, their 10 pence in, and saying, well, she might have overheard you. Somebody might have recognised you. I took it on board, saying, well, somebody could have, but I know myself, there was nobody there that knew me.
Yeah.
That kind of scenario. You believe.
I had a thing actually happen, and it was, oh Jesus, 25 years ago, something like that. My lad was still in a pram, my middle lad. And my mum had asked me to drop her off at her cousin's because she'd got a medium. And she said, will you drop me off at Mary's? I said, yeah, all right. So I'd gone and picked her up and took her. And Mum said, oh, you come in and wait for me. We won't be too long. And I went, right, okay, fair enough, So I'd gone in and I'd waited with her. And I'd actually not long split up with my husband. And so, I went, I was sat down and, this medium woman come out and I went, are you next, Mum? And medium woman went, are you coming to see me? I went, no, I'm just drop. She went, come and see me. Come in. I went, I'm not paying. I was like, I'm not paying. I don't want to see you. She went, no, it's on. So straight away I was interested because she wasn't charging me. I was like, okay. So I went in and I sat down and she went, you think you've just got out of a relationship, don't you? And I went, well, yeah, I have. She went, I don't see an end to it. And I went, what? And she went, she said, I can still see a full circle. She said, I'm not saying it won't ever end. She said, but I don't see an end to it. And as it happened, right, and again, this is only one thing she said to me. As it happened, I'm still not divorced from my husband, although I've not been with him for 25 years because I don't know where he is to divorce him. I suppose I could just probably try and do it now, but I have no clue where he is in the world. So I can't divorce him because I don't know where he is. So literally, there's been no end to it, because I can't divorce him because I don't know where he is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like one of the things she said. And then when she did the runes as well, and so I shook them and I did all this, and one of them fell on the floor and I just went to pick it up. She went, no, just leave it. I went, okay. And she went, you've got a baby, haven't you? I went, yeah. She went, well, you can have another one. I went, no, I'm not. I was like, no, I had 2 by then. I'd done my bit for building Britain. She went, no, you're going to have another one. You're going to have a little girl. And I went, no, I'm not. She went, you are. She went, but it isn't going to be in the next year or 2 years. She said, it's somewhere down the line. She said, but you will have another kid. And I'm like, no, because I'm all protected up. It's not happening. Yeah, 8 years later, I had Chloe, my daughter.
Well,
so that was really cool. It was like she was really good, and she didn't charge me. When you don't get charged, I think that makes you believe them a bit more because they're not out for just the cash. You know what I mean?
Exactly. A real medium will never charge you. The churches I used to go to, that's for a donation. There's a pot kind of thing at the door. And it was up to yourself. You could put in a 5 or 10 or whatever you wanted, but they're never actually charged. But that woman I seen that night, she told me things that she told me about my ex-girlfriend right down to the last detail of how she passed away. The country, she told me her name, she told me the country she passed away, and she told me how it happened, and she told me that she was watching over me, and
I do think that there's people with a gift, Scott. I really, really do. I believe my daughter's sensitive because the spirits flock to her. Do you know my house has been 10 times quieter since she moved out, but she's getting all the activity in her house. they flock to her. They really, really do. She's been seeing stuff all the time since she was 2-year-old. She's had scenes played out for her on her bedroom wall, like a projector in black and like shadows, played out on a wall of a sacrifice on an altar. Somebody bringing a knife down on. She was like 10 years old, and she comes screaming into my room, and she went, "They're killing him! They're killing him!" Right? And I went, "Killing him?" And she went, "They're killing him!" And she dragged me back in, and she went, "They're not there now." And when she explained what had happened, it was like a projector playing a sacrifice on an altar in front of her on the wall. And she was convinced of it. She was convinced of it. And she wouldn't, she's happened a couple of times. She's seen a shadow man who kept standing at the end of her bed. And then one day she woke up and he was over her face. And she wouldn't sleep in her room for 2 months. She wouldn't sleep in her bedroom for 2 months because she scared her that much. We had to just pull a mattress off her bed and put it in our room with us. And she was like 7 or 8 at the time. And we had to put it in our room because she wouldn't sleep in her bedroom.
I've listened to you, Max. I've got the cats in here with me, and I don't know what they're doing.
And so you can't make, they can make things up. But why would a 7-year-old kid make up a sacrificial altar, and somebody bringing a knife down into somebody's chest from the head? That's not what 7-year-olds think about. See, is it?
No.
And I was into the paranormal then.
If 7-year-olds are going to, 7-year-olds will maybe tell wee lies about that they never made the mess in their room, or they never spilt something on the carpet, silly wee things, or it wasn't them that started a fight at school, stuff like that, or the teacher, my teacher was horrible to me today, innocent, white lies, but no about sacrificial altars, that's just, no, not stuff like that.
To me, that's what it was. And she was 7, and it scared the living crap out of her. She was so scared. But again, I can't prove this. It's not something I can prove because it was my 7-year-old daughter sitting in the middle of one night, So I can't prove it. I believe her. But she's always had experiences, far more than I've ever had, far more than most people would she's she'll see full-bodied apparitions where I would see something flash by me. Although I have seen full-bodied, but she'll see them all the time. But she isn't clairaudient. She doesn't hear them talking. She'll see them. They're not talking to her in the way, where you would either hear a voice or something. She sees them, and it scares her because, and I can't help her with it because, I don't see them like she does or what have you. And so it just scares her sometimes.
It does.
Hi, Julian.
Mysterious says she went to see a medium, keeps jumping up. She was blind in a wheelchair. She told me loads that she couldn't possibly know. I know exactly what you mean, Mysterious, and Gay was saying the same thing. Sometimes you go and see a medium and they'll be absolutely spot on, and it's just an ordinary person. There's no big, airs and graces about them. This wee woman I seen was just, you could pass her in, Morrison's and you wouldn't hear a second, and then you
I was taking my sister owned a pub, right? And she this medium who came, she never charged. So she'd do an event, but what she did is if the pub charged an entry fee, then it had to go to charity. But she wanted to see the receipts to what charity it went to and things like that. And all she wanted out of the night was a lift to and from the event and a bruise, a cup of tea, a coffee, whatever she had.
Aye.
provided for her while she was there. So she never, if the event charged, and it had to go to charity. So so my sister had a pub, and she'd got her this night, and she was probably in her 70s, you know, at the time, and I was driving her home. And like, well, you know, I was driving, my sister was in the car with me, and we were driving her home. She was sat in the back, and she went out of the blue, she went, all right, I'll tell her. I mean, our Tracy sort of like side-eyed each other, like we were talking to, like we were like that. And she went through the middle of the seat. She went, whose birthday's in December? And I went, mine. She went, I've got your brother here, David. And I went, okay. She went, he just wants to say hiya. And I went, tell him hi. I was like,
you don't know what to say. I mean, that night I went, so this one told me about my daughter, she told me about Alison, but then she says to me, yeah, I've got I see these cats. You want to buy 2 cats, 5 each?
no, I've got 2. This is where mine sleep. I stuck to sleeping. She likes the footwell of my desk, so I had to put blankets down for her because she stuck to sleeping in the footwell of my desk.
Oh, no, these 2 are driving us. But I mean, this medium says also to me, I've got a gentleman here. He's kind of movie star, looking well groomed, you know, and he's telling me, and right away I knew it was my dad, because my dad was always.
Where men used to dress as men with the tie and the shirts, and you know, it was an everyday thing, wasn't it? But you know, a hat sometimes. They were proper dressed, didn't they?
He was always immaculate. The hair was right back, and it was a spitting image of a young Jack Nicholson. That's what it always reminded me. But this woman seems he's kind of like Hollywood star kind of looking, and he's very straightforward, and he's telling you that you've got a gift and you need to pursue it. You need to keep going. You keep finding books. And this woman was buying what she described my dad right down to a T. And I was with that, you know, thank you. That's all I could say, you know, thank you. And you don't know what to say, you know.
No.
It does kind of.
That same woman, though, who I was saying about that, I miscarried very late on in my pregnancy, and I had to sign a birth and death certificate because, you know, I was that far gone for a while. You know, I think it was because there was life for up to 30 minutes afterwards. I had to sign a birth and death certificate, and. You can imagine that's traumatic because I've miscarried and then I had to do this, and then it was a couple of years later, and I actually went to one of the events, and she come up to me. She went, "Who knows Jeanette?" She went, "Jeanette's not long dead. Who knows Jeanette?" And like a few people put their hands up, and I didn't. Although I knew somebody called Jeanette who died not long before with a stroke, but I didn't. You know, quite a few people had put their hand up in one group. And she went to them, you know Olive? She went, because I don't think you do. They went, no. Well, Olive was Jeanette's mum. And I went, I do. Like, you know, like I do. She went, I named, because I had to sign a birth certificate, and I named them after my brother who died, and because it was a boy who had miscarried, and I named him David as well. And it's a family name, you know. And she went, I just want to tell you that, she said, David's all right. She said, Jeanette's brought him through. She said, she's holding his hand. And I was like, okay, better start praying and running outside. I was like, wow. And then I phoned Olive up because Jeanette had only died about 3 months before, if that. So I phoned her mum up, and I told her what had happened. So she's crying down the phone as well. It was just like a big cry fest because, you know, it was like her daughter and my son kind of thing. You know, it was like a big cry fest. But I do think that people have a gift, but I do think it's rarer than people perceive, because I do think a lot of people are out to make a killing, you know, of it. And you could actually trust this woman because she didn't charge. Only had to go to charity, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She got a lift, but it was freaky, you know, because to me, you know, you miscarry late on in pregnancy, and you know you don't expect. And I don't even know why, because you know the energy's still there, but it was the last thing I ever expected to hear. You know, the last thing I ever expected to hear.
I do.
Go on.
Sorry, when I after you know that time was over, that night of service, I went out of the car, and I must have sat in the car for maybe half an hour or something, just sitting, you know, going over and over and over, and just, you know, before he even turned the engine. And then I just sat there for, it must have been a good 30 minutes, just trying to get my head around the fact of what, you know, what I'd just been told. And it did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it made me feel better. You know, it gave me a wee bit of happiness knowing that Donna was still there.
Yeah, yeah.
She was
and that
totally
they're all
got-
right. And that they're all right, because I mean, as much as I want to try and get evidence to it, and you know, you've got equipment, and you know, so as much as we want to try and gain evidence for the paranormal, to actually hear somebody we believe genuine and it's not out to make a quick buck tell us an event that they wouldn't know is comforting and shocking all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Because we want to know that our loved ones who've passed are somewhere and that they're okay. And it's probably evidence that we'll never be able to catch or affirm in any way, shape, or form with equipment. You know?
The wee one shouting, be back in a wee second, the wee one shouting.
I thought I heard something.
2 seconds.
You got him trained.
Oh, Scott,
Well,
Scott's a very trained man.
well done.
I didn't even do it. He's trained himself.
Do you know what though? My other half cooks. I don't cook. I'm the world's worst cook, and I will cook Christmas dinner. Right? That's what I cook. I do Christmas dinner, right? Because I hate cooking, right? But he cooks every night. It's like I'm like, thanks, love.
I don't cook, right? But I can cook, but I'm disabled, so it's hard for me, especially now because my condition's getting worse. But I can cook. I do cook sometimes, but Scott's a trained chef, so I'm like, why should I cook?
Lucky, God, you paid it there.
I know.
You know? My brother-in-law's a chef, and I always say to my sister, "You jammy bitch, how did you manage that?" It's like, no, but I'm not. I'm the same. I can't stand up for too long. You know, I can't stand up for too long. A minute, and I'm like needing to sit down. But what I do at Christmas is I've got a big stool, so I sit that side on my stool and I put up spoons, you know, and do it all. And then like Rob will lift things in and out of the oven for me and what have you. But and I'll test it. But he does everyday cooking, you know, because I can't. But he does it. But I'm not the best cook either, and I still really admit it. I'm all right doing a roast and meat and 2 veg kind of thing. But anything fancy, you know, I can't do anything. You know, meat and 2 veg or a stew or a shepherd's pie. I'm all right at that, you know. Basic.
Simple stuff like pasta, soups. I can make soup. I can make pasta. I can do stew, but anything other than that, it's like Scott got in that kitchen.
Rob, my other half, he makes this tomato, and he not tomato, mushroom soup, and he purifies it down. But it's absolutely, it's like, you know, when you eat something and you're like, I really need more of that. And like, I can remember eating this soup, and I'm a Northern English lass, right? So we have bread with everything, right? Northern English people, Northwest, we have bread with everything in Lancashire. And I can remember eating this soup and thinking, I didn't want the bread that was there because he like crusty rolls with it. And I can remember thinking, I didn't want to eat. I was just like, that was, and all the time I'll say, well, I'll that mushroom soup, make that mushroom soup that you made.
We were just saying how well trained you are.
Trained?
Yes, and the fact that you're a good cook because you're a chef.
Yeah, well, that fucking dog. Well trained. I mean, aye.
I'm not last time. Sit. Sit.
The cooking.
You do the cooking. My other half does the cooking as well.
I tend to get stuck in the kitchen. Know what I mean?
Only because you're a chef, and where the chefs belong? In a kitchen.
I'm not. It doesn't interest me though, Sarah. Cooking has no. I'm like, I need to eat because I need to eat to live, and that's about as much as cooking interests me. You know, I've never been interested in cooking. And like I said, I can cook the basics because my mum made sure we could all cook the basics, you know, stews or meat and 2 veg or, you know, that kind of thing. But, you know, it's like, I've set myself a task this year, everybody. So, not really been out for 8 years. My daughter invited me for Christmas dinner this year and I said I'd go. She's going to cook in a new house. And I said I'd go. And it doesn't sound a lot to a lot of people, but when you're an agoraphobic, I'm worrying about this already. And I've still got nearly 2 months to go. And I've had panic attacks about going, but I said I would go and I'm going to. I said to Rob, do not buy stuff in for a Christmas dinner because I won't go if we have stuff in. And I really want to go. So it's like monumental after 8 years. Do you know what I mean? And do you know what? She only lives around the corner. You can walk to her house in 3 minutes from my house. It's 30 seconds in the car. She literally lives round the corner from me. But I said I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I am because it's really hard. I want to get better, but you can't get better when I can't get medication, and I can't get medication because I can't go to the doctors, and the doctor won't do a house visit. But even if he did do a house visit, in our area, they don't take blood at your house. You have to go to a blood clinic to have your bloods took. Well, I can't go to a blood clinic because I'm agoraphobic. So I'm kind of in a catch-22 situation.
I wrote in a hard place.
Yeah, yeah. The mental health team come out. The mental health team will come out, but they'll only come out for so many seconds, and then they expect you to go there. And I'm like, I'm agoraphobic. I'm going to get there, you know. It's like, and they won't give me medication because I can't have a blood test.
So you're stuck. It's catch-22. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of stuck. But I think we're going to, because that's us at 2.5 hour mark now, so I think we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
But if you could just take care, Mags, after we come off, that'd be great. So, thanks very much, everybody, for coming in. We're back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock for, I was going to say Hollywood. It's not fucking Hollywood. Give it a fucking Hollywood. Halloween. No fucking Holly. I don't know where that came from. However,
got Jack Nicholson on the show.
No, I forgot what I was saying. We're back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock for our Halloween.
Halloween extravaganza.
We don't tell you that Halloween. So thanks everybody for coming in. Thanks all for your comments. You're thinking of Hollywood Squares, possibly freaky. I don't know what the fucking thing. It's been a very long day. No, I mean, it's been a very long day. But we'll see you all tomorrow night, hopefully. So be good and be safe. And we'll see you then. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.